29 years old, $15 million raised, business partners with Steph Curry, and CEO of multiple businesses. That is the resume of our guest today, and we're going to figure out not only how he did it, but how we can use those same methods and apply those to our lives and businesses. What's going on? My name is Matthew Osborne, and I'm happy you're joining me today because we have a super exciting guest with us on the show. This interview dates back to a podcast I started back in 2016 called The Young and Elite, which is where I interviewed successful entrepreneurs under the age of 30 to figure out the things they were doing that really set them apart from everyone else. And we're going to take these same principles and learn how we can apply them to our lives to be more successful. If this sounds interesting to you, be sure to subscribe below and be updated when future videos go live. Now, I'm extremely excited to share this interview with you today specifically because Jordan Fliegel was not only one of the most successful people I interviewed on this podcast, he was also one of the kindest people. Even after this interview was complete, he stayed on to talk to me. He asked questions, he asked how the podcast was going, and he even gave me a reference for a few guests he thought would fit well with the podcast and made some introductions for me. Since this interview took place, however, a few things have changed with Jordan I want to tell you about right now. During this interview, he was CEO of CoachUp. He had raised $15 million for it, and he already had thousands of coaches on his platform across the country, which is pretty impressive for anyone in their 20s. Now, though, he's the chairman of CoachUp, the CEO of Techstars, and he also founded a company called Draft.com you may have heard of if you're into fantasy sports, which he sold in 2017 for $49 million. In this interview, you'll hear what Jordan does day in and day out to turn his businesses into a success. His principles obviously work considering his success, so stay focused, grab a pen and paper, because we are about to learn from one of the best. Young and Elite, Episode 7.
Welcome to the Young and Elite Podcast, where your host, Matt Osborne, interviews the world's most elite entrepreneurs under the age of 30. Learn how to become self-employed, gain financial freedom, and live a life on your terms while you're still young. If you want to join the ranks of the Young and Elite, keep listening because it all starts now.
You are listening to the Young and Elite Podcast, the show that interviews entrepreneurs under the age of 30 2 times a week. I'm Matthew Osborne, and I'm excited to introduce to you our guest today, the founder of CoachUp.com, Jordan Fliegel. Jordan, are you excited and ready to go?
I am. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Yeah, Jordan is an American entrepreneur, an early-stage technology investor, and a former professional basketball player. He is the founder and president of CoachUp.com, the venture-backed company headquartered in Boston, Massachusetts, that features over 14,000 private coaches and trainers nationwide that conduct coaching in almost every sport you could guess. When starting CoachUp, Jordan teamed up with the best of the best, including world champions like Stephen Curry and Julian Edelman. Jordan wrote his first book back in 2014 called Reaching Another Level. He was included in Inc.'s 30 Under 30 in 2015, Boston Business Journal's 40 Under 40 in 2014, and was even named New England's Entrepreneur of the Year by Ernst & Young in 2015. Jordan, tell us a little bit more about who you are and what you do.
Sure. Well, I'm an internet entrepreneur and investor, but really more of an entrepreneur. I love building companies and, started doing it not too long ago. So, don't have a ton of experience in terms of years, but have raised $15 million for CoachUp.
Wow.
I'm also started another business recently that I'm a chairman of the board of, not running that full time. And we just raised a venture capital as well. So in addition to that, I'm also advising 4 other venture-backed businesses and have actually invested in 40 startups over the last 4 years. So I've seen kind of entrepreneurship from both trying to build my own companies and also advising and investing in other people's companies. And I love entrepreneurship. I think there's so much opportunity for young people to get involved with startups, either starting them or working in them. And for me, starting CoachUp, is really just based on something that, I knew intimately. I had been a basketball player. And, long story short, I had a coach who really helped me to be able to play in college and be able to play professionally after college. And I wanted to help coach other kids. So I started a coaching business, basically working one-on-one in small groups to kind of do what my coach had done for me for other kids in my hometown where I grew up in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And after playing professional basketball, I kept coaching kids, and I realized there really should be a better way to match up athletes with coaches. and I tried to find a solution. Nothing existed, and so I decided to build a marketplace, an Uber or an Airbnb, if you will, of the athletic and fitness world.
Nice. And so, walk us through kind of how that business started, because a lot of people I think would maybe have that idea, like, hey, I think something like Uber, a service like that, have that idea, but how did you actually turn that into reality? How did you make a web company based off of that idea, where you were then able to get that funding and be able to help as many people as you had today with coaching?
Sure, yeah, and today we're 35 full-time employees in Boston. Like I said, we raised 15 million in venture capital. We have now actually just passed 20,000 coaches on the platform.
Wow.
And we've coached over 300,000 kids so far. And so it's been really great to see the kind of impact on creating, 35 full-time jobs and 20,000 part-time jobs, and helping so many kids, hundreds of thousands of kids, and soon millions of kids, get better at their sport and develop confidence. And so I'm really proud of what we've accomplished together in building CoachUp. It all started, it was a pretty simple idea. As I mentioned, I was coaching kids, and I tried to create my own website, just to have a little website up, to kind of let the world know about what I'm doing and let kids in the area know I was open to coaching them. And I realized that it was kind of problematic. I have a lot of former teammates who I played in college with, or played professionally with, or knew from the area, who played basketball or other sports. And as they saw me start to get, more and more kids that I was working with, they said, well, hey, I would love to coach kids too. How did you get started doing that? And so I kind of walked them through the steps. So you got to create a website, and you got to print out flyers and put it up. And then once you get clients, you got to kind of try to keep track of what sessions have happened and how many are remaining. And you got to get liability insurance and sort of all these sort of things. And you're running a mobile business, but I didn't have a mobile app. I was in a court every day, but couldn't run my business from my phone. And I started realizing, man, there really should be a better way. I mean, this is inherently mobile. It's courts, fields, and gyms where training's taking place. Coaches and former collegiate and professional athletes have real skill and knowledge they want to pass on, and want to work with kids. It'd be their dream to coach. I mean, that's what they'd rather do than almost anything else, but it's really hard for them to start a business and manage it. So what if there was a platform that existed that automated all of that, so they could they have their own website on the platform, they could accept payments, insure all the coaches. They wouldn't have to get their own liability insurance, they wouldn't have to collect waiver liability forms, they wouldn't have to do active marketing. They could kind of sit back and we could kind of generate leads for them. I thought there was a lot of dynamics that would work well for marketplace business. So it was combining my passion for coaching with something I experienced doing as both an athlete and as a coach on both sides of the aisle. And then also I should mention, after playing basketball overseas, I went to business school, and after business school I worked at an online marketplace, which is in a different industry, connecting people with subject matter experts. But it was a marketplace nonetheless. It wasn't my idea. It was a fourth of four people there. We were a small startup trying to get going. But I knew a little bit about marketplaces from that. It was basically my first real job. And I knew a little bit about coaching, and it just kind of light bulb went off. There should be a marketplace for coaching. So from that idea, I then, I had to go out and, bring on a team and raise money and grow the business and develop a brand and all that stuff. But it really started with knowing a little bit about a certain industry, feeling like I really understood the problem on both sides, and just having tried to come up with my own solution to solve it, and just saying, there's got to be a better way, and no one else was doing it, and so I just decided to do it.
I love that concept you keep bringing up about how you saw a problem, and so you just decided to make the solution for that problem. I think that's something a lot of young people can do to start that first business, is just see where you can find a problem that's happening and figure out how you can solve that problem. That's some awesome advice right there.
Yep.
So how did you initially start bringing in revenue to your company? Where did you get those initial first customers? And then how did you talk us through a little bit about what your current streams of revenue are in the business today?
Sure. So our first customers were my own. When we launched the platform, I was the very first coach on the platform. So I took my clients I was already working with, and I said, hey, if you guys want to keep working with me, you got to book me through CoachUp. And so I started processing through CoachUp. So we would take a piece of every training session, We would take more up front, for the first session and the next couple sessions than later on because, we were creating more value. We felt like for the coach when we send them a new client, so we can take we're justified in extracting a larger rake on the first couple sessions, but after the, 5th, 10th, 20th session, then we shouldn't be taking as much money from the coach. That sort of give them incentive to kind of not like us and maybe even try to go around us. So it's basically a percentage of the sessions, and almost every marketplace, whether you're Uber, Airbnb, or us, or Dog Vacay, or anyone else, you take this somewhere between 10 to 20% of the total, what we call GMV, gross market value, the total amount of money that's paid. So for us, the coach is getting the vast majority of the money. They're getting, over 80% of the money. But that's okay with us. So that's the primary source of revenue, and that was on day one, and it's still today. But I'm a big believer in co-centric growth for marketplaces. So you think about Amazon, they started with books, but now it's everything, right? And eBay with Pez dispensers, but now they've expanded. And Uber started with black cars, but now you can get, a taxi and everything else. So for us, we started with one-on-one coaching. That was our beachhead. That was where we said, hey, we're going to really own this. We know this is a problem. It's a little bit niche, but we're going to own it. We're going to do it really well. And in the process of doing that, we're going to bring coaches and athletes together. We're going to create great content. We're going to develop a great brand. And then from there, what can we do with these ingredients? Well, we could do camps and clinics. It's very closely related to one-on-one and training. So we started with small group training, and then we went to camps and clinics, which we're now really pushing. And we believe that we could push products through our marketplace. If we have 20,000 coaches that reaching kids every day, they can make endorsements for whether it's Under Armour or whether it's Dick's Sporting Goods. They could definitely be an asset, so we could do some sort of sponsorships or advertising or product placement.
Yeah.
So you kind of grow out like that way, but always thinking about how do we add value to both sides of the marketplace. Whenever we think about doing something new, I think first, does this add value to both sides? Ideally, anything we do should add value to both sides. Secondly, do we derive an unfair advantage from what we've already built in going after this new opportunity? So are we better positioned to take the camp and clinic space in the United States because we have this network of athletes and coaches already and trust and all these sorts of things and clients already in the system that we can cross-sell? Absolutely. Much, much easier for us to do it than some random person just starting out. And thirdly, does it add value to our business from a potential acquirer standpoint, from someone who is trying to evaluate CoachUp or when we go public and say, hey, that thing added a lot of value overall to the network because it helped both sides. They're uniquely positioned to go after that opportunity. And in doing so and being successful in going after that opportunity, it makes the whole thing more valuable and makes us more interested in the CoachUp business. So I try to keep all those three things in mind. And when an opportunity, kind of meets that threshold, it tends to be something that kind of gets boosted up in our roadmap.
I love that. I also like how you said at the very beginning, your very first customers were your own. One consistency that I've seen throughout all the entrepreneurs that have been on the show is that the best place to start when you're young is with a service business. It doesn't take a lot of capital. It's just giving of your time, and it's a place you can start. And interview after interview, I see people like you that have started their business based on they're giving a service at first, and they figure out how to get that service into a repeatable business model and then just expand it from there. That's a great way for young people to start a business, and you're a perfect example of that. So when you wanted to expand it past yourself, did you immediately go to try and find investors and create an app? Or did you first start just getting a few other coaches involved and then kind of work your way up towards getting investors and building the app and software you have today? Or how did that process happen?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's complex, right? When you're building a technology startup, you're creating something from nothing, right? And so you need a team in order to build a product. And you need a product and a team in order to get capital. And you need capital in order to hire a team to build your product. So where do you start? It's very, very hard. And so I started with, I need to build the team first. And so that's co-founders, right? And that's where most people start. You can bring on a technical co-founder if you're a business guy, or if you're an engineer, you can bring on a businesswoman or a businessman to run that side of the business. And you don't have to compensate, right? You have equity. And then from there, you can go out and build a product and get some early traction. and then you can maybe raise some money to kind of accelerate that, hire more people, get more traction, raise more money, and it sort of snowballs. So that to me, that made sense, and that's what I set out to do. So I brought on a technical co-founder, it's a really hard thing to do as
I
a kind
imagine,
of
yeah.
businessy person, because what you're doing is you're asking a very smart, employed, typically engineer who's making a lot of money, six figures, if they're good, to quit their high-paying job, not go work for Google, not start their own company, but instead come work on your idea with you for free. I mean, it's a tough pitch, right?
Oh, definitely.
So, and that's hard, and you really want to get that person's going to make or break your business. So I was very fortunate to get two incredible technical co-founders, Arian Radman and Gabe Durazo, who both had experience in sports or in working at sports startups, loved the idea, wanted to help kids, really good people, not just looking at how much money they're going to make, but really cared about changing the world and doing something important. And they're both engineers, so we complement each other very well, because I am definitely not an engineer, and I'm really jealous of how smart these guys are. But so while they were building the product, I set out to onboard coaches. So I invited what ended up being 100 coaches over to our little office for pizza. And they talked to me about their business, and we incorporated a lot of that feedback into what we built. And also, when we launched with 100 coaches who were friends with us, who knew our names, and we knew their names, and they cared about it, and they felt some ownership in it. And so I also set out at the same time to raise $50,000, which now seems like a tiny bit of money, but back then was a lot of money. And I wanted the money because it would enable me to hire a really good engineer, and I thought accelerate our product growth for those coaches. And also, I thought if we could raise money, not just get the money, but raise money from accredited angel investors, really good, well-known angel investors, it would give a lot of legitimacy to the business. And that legitimacy is super important early on because, again, you're trying to convince early hires that this is a real business and has a chance of really making it, and you have real smart angel investors investing in you is helpful. And it helps you get into accelerators and incubators. It helps with PR. You can get some press based around who's invested, and it's very helpful for a number of reasons. So while they were busy building the product, I set out to raise the money to get onboard the coaches and to get some press and to get out there and launch. And it worked out that way.
So you had Stephen Curry, I believe, and Julian Edelman, right, as two of your kind of partners in helping this launch. Was that initially? Did you get them, or was that a little later on down the road?
That came a little bit later on. We're very fortunate. Stephen Curry's the face of the company, a huge part of what we're doing, as is Julian Edelman, an important advisor for us. Cam Neely, the president of the Boston Bruins, one of the best hockey players of all time, is an investor. Gabe Kapler, who played for the Red Sox and a bunch of major league teams, is an investor and now runs player development for the Dodgers. The CMO of Reebok, former CMO of Reebok, is an investor. We're really fortunate to have pretty high-powered people in the sports world. David Pace, who sold Reebok to Adidas and did the Tom Brady Uggs deal and was very helpful for us in a number of different ways. And with our relationship with the NBA that we have, is credited to David Pace. So it was important to me early on to say, okay, we're building a sports tech company. I need to surround myself the best possible people. As a basketball player, you're always trying to play with the best players. You're always trying to play up a level, even if it means you're not going to look so good. You'd rather play with great players and be the worst player on the court than be the best player on the court with lesser players. And you just get better that way, and your team is ultimately better. So I said, okay, let's try to figure out how we can get the best sports people into the company, involved with the company, and at the same time get the best engineers and technology expertise that we can. For instance, Paul English, co-founder and CTO of Kayak, which sold to Priceline for $1.6 billion.
Yeah.
He's an investor and an advisor. And so the best technology, the best sports, and also the best consumer marketing team that we can. So the former CEO of ShoeBuy, Scott Savitz, is an investor in the business. And we've tried to bring in e-commerce expertise as well. So combining those three things together, I felt like we had a pretty good chance to be the best youth sports company in America. And I think we're on that path.
Yeah, that's great. Surrounding yourself with people that just are smart, that are better at it than you're doing is a great thing to do. Like the old saying goes, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And that's
Exactly.
great for starting
Yeah.
a company, surrounding yourself with people that are excellent at what they do. So that kind of brings us to the question of the day then. What is your advice for someone that wants to do what you do, a young person that loves sports and just kind of wants to do something like you are doing?
Yeah, well, I think whether it's a sports business or any kind of company that they're looking to start, it doesn't have to be sports. We're really a technology company. We happen to be in sports, but we're really running a marketplace business, a consumer-facing business. I think the best thing to do is to commit to it. I mean, to really saying, like, look in the mirror and say, I am an entrepreneur. I am an entrepreneur, over and over again. Seriously. And what does that mean? So you need to read everything you can possibly read online that entrepreneurs are writing, that venture capitalists are writing. Really become knowledgeable. There's a lot of great books. There's a lot of great blogs. There's a lot of great podcasts, right? Like this one. I mean, I devour content. I love nothing more than reading and listening to other entrepreneurs and investors talk about what they do. I learned so much from doing that. And it doesn't feel like work to me. It's my passion. So if you really feel like you're that passionate about it, that's a great sign, and you really got to listen to that. And educate yourself. Know as much as you possibly can. The second thing is just surround yourself with like-minded people. I mean, I would have never started CoachUp. It wasn't for my childhood best friend. We played Little League together. He was the second baseman. I was the first baseman. We met. We were like 6 years old. And he had started a tech company after college while I was still playing basketball in Israel at the time. And I didn't know that I wanted to be an entrepreneur then. And through watching him go through it and seeing how excited he was about it, that made me interested in entrepreneurship and startups. And that kind of put the idea in my mind that it was actually possible for me to do, because he had done it and he was young too, and maybe I could do it as well. And he was actually instrumental because I met my technical co-founder through him. So if you surround yourself with people who are also thinking about doing startups or being an entrepreneur, I think that's really, really important. You're going to get your best source of co-founders from your network. You're going to learn a lot from the people around you. You're going to talk about startups and startup issues if you surround yourself with people who are in the space. So I think that's super important. And if you don't really have that network around you, you really got to develop it, because I think great businesses just kind of happen naturally and a little bit based on luck, just surrounding yourself with good people who are interested in the same things and talking a lot. And, most of my really close friends are all interested in startups or doing startups or working at them. And we all have like a list of ideas, on a notepad in our phones. And we're constantly like, hey, wouldn't it be better system if we did it this way? Or what if this thing existed? How much would you pay for that? And we're constantly bound, and 99% of the stuff we'd never do anything with. But every now and then something actually happens. And I think that's where our new ideas come to life. So those two things, really, first, one, commit to it, identify with yourself as being an entrepreneur, get as educated as possible, learn as much as you can, devour all the content that you can, and surround yourself with great people. And then at some point, it'll just feel right. Some idea with some person will come along and you'll connect the dots and it'll just happen.
That's great. That's awesome advice. So what is one habit that the Young and Elite listeners should implement into their lives? What's a habit that's helped you out?
I think my approach is as an athlete. So when I kind of transitioned from my whole life being about basketball to my whole life being about like basketball in school, and then now my whole life is just about startups, I kind of brought that student athlete mindset with me, which is, as an athlete in particular, at the higher levels, you have to be really regimented with how you take care of yourself. Sleep, nutrition, rest, a set schedule, making deliberate choices about, you're not going to go to that party. Instead, you're going to like sleep or work out or whatever it might be. It's really, really important to bring that along with you. When you're doing a startup, you're working so hard. You're flying a million miles an hour, and there's so much that you're doing that you just don't know what you're doing. But there's a lot that's out of your control, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But the things that you can control, are you well rested? Are you mentally in a good place? Are you taking care of your body? Do you have the right energy levels? Are you surrounding yourself with the right people? Are you putting yourself in the best possible position to be successful? And so I really try to think about that. And how do I get the most out of my day and be as efficient as possible? Because if you can't kind of maximize your own personal efficiency, it's really hard to help your team, your 10, 20, 30, 40, 100,000 employees to be more efficient and productive. And if you're really going with a business and it seems like you're onto something that's working, there's so many different ways you can spend your time, and it becomes really overwhelming. So you have to be disciplined, you have to be organized, you have to take care of your body, and basically just put yourself in the best position to win.
I love it. All right, so there's an analogy for you. This is an analogy that I think will help a lot of listeners because it's probably a situation a lot of them are in. So here's the analogy. You have a shoestring budget, you're working full time, but you want to become self-employed within the next year. What business would you start and how would you start it?
Wow. Well, it really depends on who you are, right? I mean, for me, I was actually in that position, right? I was a former athlete and I wanted to start my own business. I wanted to give back. I wanted to make an impact. I wanted to feel good about what I wanted to do or what I was doing. And so for me, it was coaching. I said, okay, well, I know a lot about basketball. Why don't I just start coaching kids, and I'll create a little website and market it a little bit and see what happens. And so that's what I did. So I would say to anyone, just, what do you know a lot about? Did you, do really well in the SATs? Well, you could become a tutor. Are you really strong and, capable of moving stuff? I mean, maybe you start a moving business. And, when you just get started in any industry and you're actually out there and you have clients who are paying you real dollars, your mind will naturally start to click and to think, geez, how can I scale this? Can I work more hours in the day? Can I hire a couple of people and pass on some of the work and take a cut for the referral? Can I create some sort of marketplace or system or better process for doing this work? Once you're in an industry and you're really out there and operating a real business with real money, you start to pay way more attention and you naturally start to really think about the inefficiencies that exist, and maybe there's a larger opportunity than a part-time thing. Maybe, this could really be a sustainable business for you and a lifestyle business for you, and maybe that's great and that's okay. Or maybe it could be something that you could really scale and becomes a massive business. Then maybe you could build a category leader in that space. But you got to get out there with something that you actually really know something about.
Great. All right. Well, it is time for the rapid fire round. I will ask you 6 questions in rapid succession, and you tell me the first thing that comes to your mind. Are you ready?
Ready.
All right. What is one goal you are trying to reach right now?
One goal I'm trying to reach. I want to create value for my coaches on CoachUp.
All righty. What is your favorite app or software that you would recommend?
I am in love with Draft. It's called Play Draft. It's a fantasy sports app, but you can challenge your friends. It's a competitor to FanDuel or DraftKings. I actually think it's going to take the market. It's really cool, and you can play with your own friends for real dollars. But it's you have a much better chance of winning. And it's super fun. It's a mobile first game, way more friendly and whatever. Draft.com. Just check it out. Play Draft.
All right. What is your morning routine?
Although I trying to get off it, I reach for my phone. I go through my emails, I delete as many as I can. I then roll out of bed and shower and make breakfast and read a couple newspapers, and then I check my schedule for the day.
All right, what is one book that you would recommend to the Young and Elite listeners?
Totally self-promoting, but I just wrote a book. It's called Coaching Up, published by Wiley & Sons. It's available on Amazon and Barnes & Nobles, as well as a lot of bookstores across the country. But Coaching Up, and it's a book for business leaders about what we can learn from how the best coaches motivate, reach, and support their athletes, and how we can kind of bring that into the workplace. But I obviously wrote it, so I'm biased, but Coaching Up, I think it's a helpful book for a lot of entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I'll include that in the show notes page as well. All right, so you were given $100,000. You can't spend it on your current business, and you can't start a new business with it. What would you buy?
Wow. Down payment on a 3-family or 4-family house real estate investment property.
Really?
There's no better investment than real estate. Tax benefits, cash flow from rent, depreciation, appreciation. Real estate is probably the best, safest place to invest your money and grow your money for the long term.
Alrighty, and for the last question of the rapid fire round, is there any plug for your business you'd like to share with the Young and Elite listeners?
Sure. Yeah. If you're an athlete and play sports, or, even if you're, no longer serious into sports, but, recreational tennis player or golf player, or you're into fitness or yoga or dance, check out CoachUp. We have 20,000 coaches across the country. It's the most affordable, best way to improve in sports or improve in fitness. You can do it one-on-one or with, your friends as a group, or you can take a camp or a clinic. And so you just go to CoachUp and you enter your zip code, and you can see where all the coaches are around you and what they charge, and reviews from other people. And everything's through the app. It's super simple, 100% money back guarantee. So if for any reason you don't like your coach, your training experience, a full refund. But I think it's a great service. Again, I'm biased. I'm founder of the company, but if you read the reviews that come through it, you would quickly see that it's really powerful service, and people learn more from their coaches in just a few short sessions than they've learned their whole entire lives about a certain sport. So it's definitely worth checking out.
I'm sure. Check out CoachUp.com. All right, Jordan. Well, thank you so much for the value that you've shared today. I know it's going to help me a lot, and I'm sure it's going to help the listeners as well. Remember, everyone, to check out the show notes page at youngandelite.com to see all the resources, tips, tricks, and products Jordan shared with us today. And to close out this awesome interview, I have 2 last questions for you, Jordan. Who are you, and how are you feeling?
I am Jordan Fliegel, and I am feeling young and elite.
And that is the interview with Jordan Fliegel. Anyone can give you advice. Very few people have a resume to back it up like Jordan does. More episodes just like this every Tuesday night at 6 p.m. EST. Subscribe below to be notified when those are released, and I hope to see you guys there.